in this kind of event.
Excellent, great. Well, I will do for everybody filtering in. This is the holding period where I stall for time while everybody floods into this magic internet space. And for our speakers, if you were one of our presenters today, like Meowshka, Hashcode, Edby Charlie Tango, already on top of things, Coco Doko, already on top of things, please feel free to request to speak, and I will click the button and you'll be on stage, just like that. Welcome, Hashcode. I am the sound of very entertaining hold music that keeps us entertained while folks flood in. Dark greetings to everybody in the audience. Shout outs. We got nice to see Chris out there, Neil, Anthony, Paul, Evan from the foundation. Shout out to the data analysts. Best charts. Great charts or greatest charts? We usually do a couple of minutes of this. Please bear with me. If you like what you're hearing, chime in community call chat channel. If you don't like what you're hearing, just keep it to yourself. It's a free call, you know.
Almost through, and I'll make sure to like and subscribe there.
Yeah, make sure to like and subscribe. That's right. Ring the bell.
Smash the button.
Smash the button. Yeah. What are the you know, tag me FYP. Just hit us up. We're available everywhere. Send me your seed phrase. Just kidding.
Wow.
Never do that.
No.
Never do that. This was a test.
That's how you find out who the scammers are. You just offer, like, oh, thanks for reaching out to me. Do you need my seed words to help me with this? And
yeah, you know, it couldn't hurt. It couldn't hurt, you know.
Then you throw out the Rickroll seed phrase.
Yeah, whatever problem you had with your wallet is no longer a problem because now you have a much worse problem. We're doing pretty good. Hashcode. All right, I got some. Hold on, let me find my riddles for you. I did have a dad joke. Here's what are my dad jokes?
Let's hear it.
Oh, I found a phone one. Okay. Ed B, what do prisoners use to call each other?
What do prisoners use to call each other?
Cell phones. Cell phones. We'll be here for the next 90 minutes. Hashcode, what kind of shoes do ninjas prefer?
Sneakers.
Nailed it, my man.
Come on now.
Nailed it.
You're gonna send me that? You're gonna send me that low-level stuff? All
right. Well, okay. We'll try the riddles. I remember the one my son hit me with was there are two things you can never have for breakfast. What are they? I'll take dinner. Lunch and dinner. Yes. Chat got it first. Sorry, Hashcode.
I don't know. That was pretty close. I think Keenan and I. Yeah, maybe.
Chat knows what's up. If you want to join the chat that knows what's up, the channel is Community Call Chat. And if you are interested in the agenda for this month's fabulous Helium Community Call, I am posting it in that channel. Or you can go to www.helium.foundation/community-call, and you will get the 130-page long Google Doc that we have been using for, I think, the last 2 years to archive these calls. Let's see, our first one was October 2020. Yeah, so we're coming up on not far from the 2-year anniversary. It's officially 12:05, so I'm going to commence the moderator pre-flight checklist for this edition of the Helium Foundation monthly community call. I am going to warn everyone that this meeting is recorded. It's also a notice. It's very convenient if you are not able to attend the whole call, or you know someone who couldn't attend the call. We'll be posting a recording afterwards. It usually takes a couple hours, but we will be adding it to this agenda document and posting it in the events channel. Next up, checklist. Ensure there is a note taker. There is one. It is Etta from the Helium Foundation. Thank you. As always, we all know that the note takers are the most important people on these calls. So sorry everybody else, but thank you. And then a call for additional agenda items. We're very full this month, so there will be no additional agenda items. But if you have questions or announcement items, there's a little section in the agenda. Feel free to edit something in as a suggestion, and we're happy to toss it in there. Our agenda this month. My name is Jamie Wilkinson, by the way. I'm a board member with the Helium Foundation and a regular on these calls and a big fan of dad jokes. And I'll be your host for this month. And on the agenda, we have 5 talks, 3 of which are new hips, which is always very exciting for me. The first of which is going to be an update on the mobile token, then presentations about these 3 hips that I mentioned, 67, 68, 69, which there are links in the agenda document if you need it, and we'll post it in the amazing side chat, community call chat as they come up. And the last one is Moby from Boring Protocol. I think we're okay on the preamble. Oh, and then we have no grants or MCC updates this month. Folks were not available for the call, from what I understand. But the plus side of that is more time to discuss mobile token updates. A topic I know is near and dear to all of our hearts. So I believe we have Meowshka and Hashcode on the line. If you're ready, please take it away with the mobile token updates.
Yeah, I just actually wanted to, for a lot of the community, you haven't met Meowshka, also known as Sasha, who is on the Nova Labs team as a product manager. You've heard a lot from me in the past, so really I just want to sort of make space and say welcome to the community call, your first community call, I think.
Thank you, Hashcode. Hi everyone. I'm super excited to be here. And you've started to see my announcements about the mobile token. I really appreciate the patience with the community. There are definitely a lot of changes that we need to do to launch mobile mining, a lot of moving parts. And as you've seen yesterday in the announcement, we found a bug that's a significant bug that prevents us to launch mobile as we planned this week. Thankfully, we found it on the test net, so no one's affected on the main nets. That's important. But we will unfortunately require extra time because we're going to do validator update. We're going to also need to update ETL. So our current estimate is that we plan to launch on the week of August 8th. And we're being cautious about setting the concrete date just to give us a little extra cushion to make sure we test everything. And once we launch it, it actually works as expected and there are no serious issues. So thank you everyone for being patient and supporting us. Really appreciate it. That's
On
my
behalf of
short
the whole
update.
on behalf of the whole community, no problem. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
That's great. Any other, while we have the space, I wasn't sure how long the updates would be, but if there's anything else to share, please feel free to take the time or else we'll move on.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to iterate that core team is working around the clock on the mobile mining, and that's our #1 priority at this point. So watch for updates. I'll make sure to keep community updated as we go along.
Great. And then if folks
you.
would like to follow the nitty gritty, is there a best channel in Discord or another place they should check out?
I think there's a very active discussion in 5G CBRS. I will be hopping into that channel as well. So let's keep on talking there.
Fantastic. And welcome to the call, really. I mean, it's not even new to everything else, but
thank you for having me.
A pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Hashcode, anything to add? I saw an unmute. I'll give it a sec.
Oh, yeah. I was just looking at some of the questions in the chat. One was to explore issues related to 5G. When can they be resolved? Jay, I think the stats one, it's a good question for the Explorer channel, but I will keep an eye on it. And then the red hex is not updated on new installations. I wanted to give folks just like a small idea of how that stuff works. So essentially, those red hexes are a sort of background job that scrapes a piece of software called the SAS. It's a database that's operated for all CBRS installations, and it sort of periodically scrapes. So whenever that scrape completes, that's when you'll see that red hex updated. Early on, you may have noticed that like it was something very, very manual, and it was like this thing that was checked into the Explorer repo, often by me. At least now it's an automated thing and not some terrible product manager code. But yeah, so that's what that is. As far as the mobile date push, also pushing back the IoT token transition. At this point, yes, we haven't started the work on the sort of phase 2 of HIP 51. That is, just to remind folks, that is number one, the introduction of the IoT token. Number two, the introduction of the treasury. And so you'll be able to redeem your IoT or your mobile token for the HNT that's in the treasury for that subDAO. So that is sort of the next phase.
That's great. I'll give a minute for any other questions in the chat, which, as a reminder, is community call chat.
Yeah, the discussion on snapshots or back payments for mobile rewards. I mentioned this in chat yesterday, I think, and this really would have to come from the foundation. So the pre-mine is allocated to the foundation as per HIP 51, and the foundation is what's doing the sort of 100 million token emission, at least in the Genesis phase, at least until we have a treasury. And so that's sort of the discussion that would have to happen. I don't know if they're willing or able to talk about that today, since it sort of was mentioned yesterday. But yeah, I'll sort of make sure if anyone does want to talk about it, they can. Were there any other? There was one other question that I saw. Value of the mobile and IoT tokens at Genesis. Yep, Groot's got it. Treasury started empty, but that changes over time. Yeah, that's everything related to mobile.
I think that's great. Thank you very much, Hashcode. And yeah, we'll keep the feedback coming. Again, the side chat is in community call chat is definitely the best place to give us your questions and comments, and we'll follow along as we're going along. I see Scott typing in case he wants to chime in on the foundation question, but as far as I know, it's still a little bit TBD. And we'll share information as we have it. Great. This is the sound of the transition music. Thank you, Hashcode and Meowshka, for this update about mobile tokens and 5G rollout. Yeah, feel free to hang out on the call so you can, applaud our amazing speakers. It's lonely up here. Up next on the agenda, as I mentioned, we have 3 new HIPs that have come in. A big thank you to Edda for HIP editorship, as always. It's really appreciated. If you are someone listening in and you're interested in helping out with administering the HIP process and you are roughly familiar with GitHub, please do get in touch with me. We're always looking for more people to help out. First up on our list is Ed B. Charlie Tango with HIP 67 about repealing redenomination. Ed, how are you doing?
Great. Audio check good?
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Please take it away.
All right. Hey, everyone. So this HIP started off as a Twitter space conversation. So it's nice to get a group of people to support something. Let you know, hey, let's take this forward. So one topic that was in that space was just getting this submitted, as a lot has changed since we voted on HIP 39. When HIP 39 was originally presented at the community call, I think it was last year, I agreed that it would be helpful at the time, and if it could be implemented quickly, then we should do it. However, if it proved to take any more development bandwidth, then we had definitely more important work to do, as we saw with over the course of the year, light hotspots and other proof of coverage enhancements. So HIP 67 does acknowledge that initial vote and outline some of the emergent issues with implementation, the arbitrage opportunity, the new sub tokens, and like the fact that they're coming out in the billions of max supply rather than the millions, and then potential alignment issues with exchanges and hard wallets. So one thing I wanted to point out specifically as it relates to tensions in the community as to why it took so long is that HIPs 52 and 53 now mandate the requirement of code at HIP submission, thus eliminating this lag between vote and implementation, as we saw with HIP 39. And so as it requires that work and investigation upfront. I am recommending a quick vote on this as we're coming up on the August window, which would require, I assume, notification of exchanges to prepare for this. I'm also assuming that timing will be critical as it relates to IoT and mobile tokens. Making changes while they're still simpler to deal with is probably the wise thing to do. So I welcome any feedback and questions that can help make this a quick decision for the community. And thanks for the opportunity to present my first tip.
Thank you very much for submitting it. If I know some folks are reporting a few issues with audio quality, but the HIP is linked, and Ed essentially was just giving a quick overview of it. Link to it directly. If there's any questions around this proposal to roll back the HIP 39 H&T redenomination, please feel free to chime in community call chat. Oh, we have a request to speak from JMF. I'll chime you in. Yeah.
Hey guys, I just wanted to say, as the author of HIP 39, I don't necessarily know if there needs to be a HIP to repeal rather than just sitting on the books and giving the option, but I do agree that 51 through 53 accomplishes a lot of the sort of core dynamics of what 39 was trying to accomplish. I will not be sort of verbally arguing against this HIP in any way, because I think that generally they're right, that we are accomplishing what we set out to accomplish in the beginning. So hopefully that helps, hearing that from the author of HIP 39.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for chiming in, JMF. I mean, I'll ask both of you then, really. I know it's addressed in the HIP document itself, but is there a counter argument that you've heard for keeping the redenomination, even in light of sort of some of the other changes that have also been, wildly approved by a wide margin and are moving forward?
I guess the only reason I would say that is leaving it on the books to be at the discretion of a specific party, whether it be the foundation or whatever it is, in case it is something that's helpful in the future. I think we have been through the sort of debate of the reasons for being, and I agree, like at this moment, they're a lot weaker than they were when HIP 39 first came out, now that 51 to 53 are coming out. But I don't know. I could see a reason why it would still be helpful to have a redom on the core token, say years down the line. Yes, we could revote in that HIP. That's an option. I totally get that. The other option would be to sort of enshrine that authority to, say the foundation or something. So if they want to pull that trigger in the future, save some pain and some argument. But I'm okay going either way here.
Just wanted to hop up here and say thank you to Ed for writing this HIP. I know you reached out to me about co-authoring, but I was completely slammed, so I'm glad you were able to get it done. And some of you may know that I originally led the charge against HIP 39, of course, very respectfully with respect to James for putting in the effort to author it in the first place. And, just to offer brief thoughts, I think that HIP 39 was kind of a 1-2 punch. One was miners like to receive whole coins, and two was investors like to buy lower priced things because they think it's more affordable. And I feel like number one, as you know, as James has already pointed out, has been addressed by HIP 52 and 53. And so number two alone doesn't really seem worth it in light of all the implementation struggles that were discovered in trying to get HIP 39 rolled out, right? There's a lot of complexity around what this means for exchanges, what this means for accounting. You know, every single API partner in the entire Helium ecosystem is going to have to roll in and support this change, which requires just a lot of error-prone code changes. So a lot of effort to get this rolled out. But I'm glad that we were able to get some of the most important things. What I view as the most important positive benefit of HIP 39 is get miners earning whole coins again. And I'm really glad we were able to get that done. And, you know, I thank James for bringing this idea to the forefront. I thank Ed for writing this HIP, and I'm in support of the repeal.
That's great, Armand. Thank you for chiming in. If there's any questions for Ed, JMF, or Armand, please feel free to chime in the chat. Community call chat is the best place to post. And we'll give it a couple minutes to collect anything if there's any thoughts on it while we have the time. Yeah, then Ed, would you like me to read this out, what you wrote?
Sure, that's fine. Or I can read it out. That's
please feel free, yeah, for the benefit of the recording, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so largely HIP 67 is a formality, but I think it's super important to note this general importance of follow through in the community. We voted for it, and then we should, if we're not going to do it, then we should vote to not do it. It's just to be respectful to that vote. So I know it seems kind of silly, but in my mind it matters. But I wouldn't mind adding, for what JMF said earlier, that voting no means it's reserved for someone to make the call at their discretion. If that's what we'd want to be in light of that HIP 39 is approved, then voting no would be to respect that that call is made at discretion of party. And we could add some more details on who that would be.
Copy that. Thank you very much.
For me, it would come down to whether the foundation, would like that authority. And I think it would be the foundation, unless anybody else sort of has
has some thoughts about that too.
Okay. Well, if they don't want that responsibility, then it's a bonk argument. And if it needs to pass, it needs to pass in a future HIP kind of thing. But if they would like that ability, they understand the amount of work better than anybody, at least in conjunction with Nova Lab. So, in my opinion, that would be who would make the most sense.
I appreciate that sentiment, but I also kind of personally support the idea of taking this to a collective vote. And it seems like there's, generally speaking, the chat seems supportive, and folks we've spoken with previously think it makes sense, especially, and I also appreciate the idea of sort of formalizing a decision around it rather than default languish mode.
I'll be the first person to vote for it then. If the community's behind it, if you guys behind it,
it's big.
I'm all for it.
It's like a super vote or something. Just kidding, that doesn't exist, but as a HIP author, this seems critical.
Well, we are parts of the Illuminati if you ask certain parties within the Helium community. So,
very cool. Congratulations. You get badges and stuff for that, right? Not taking requests to speak from folks who aren't directly involved in some of these topics, but thank you for those folks who've chimed in. Chat is the best place for it, the community call chat channel, and we'll proxy the channels through that. And I think with that, I don't see additional questions. I think we'll move on to the next topic. Ed, thank you so much for writing this up and being willing to hop up here and present. I also thoroughly enjoyed Germ's analysis of your audio waveforms in real time. It's really, and a big thank you to JMF and Armand, who are authors and contributors to the original HIP 39, for chiming in on this as well. Great. Feel free to stick around, support your fellow speakers if you'd like. And if there's any additional questions on this topic, there is a freshly minted HIP 67 channel in Discord that I'm sure you can Ed and others will be keeping an eye on. Thank you, Keenan, for posting the link. Moving right along to our next topic, we have Coco Doko presenting HIP 68 about the open service subDAO.
Hi, yeah. Hello, Jimmy. Thanks for inviting me talking here. And I don't know how many people have watching the proposal, but the idea is that we want to. I have to say that I'm a team member of Messi Network, which is just like a kind of bandwidth trading platform. And I'm not just trying to say some advertisement, but just like the idea is a little similar. I mean, we are just installing their services into their different kind of devices, and people could share their idle bandwidth, because that's, I mean, for different kind of devices, different kind of many people in different countries, their bandwidth is pretty valuable resource, and sometimes people, some like companies or services, they don't have enough bandwidth, but for some users, they have plenty of their bandwidth, but sometimes it's a kind of waste, right? For Helium Network, it's a pretty, I mean, we started Helium Network for a really long time, and also we know that Helium Network has so many decentralized nodes, but they have different kind of type, right? And you want to have just different types of their subdoors and running different kind of communication network. But we think that we want to use the services of the Helium network. I think that not only us, there will be just so many different projects, their company. They want to build a network, but it can be kind of difficult, and also there will be very possible to have a waste. But Helium already have the very big their network, but also you have some their device. The device have some performance, right? Some performance that, I mean, some different performance they are not used well, and also their bandwidth and their space. So the idea is just if you could have open a list that for their services who want to join to use their Helium network, so they could just get some kind of go some process, and if the process is verified, it's just a secure services. So it's a secure service. So their the projects, they could just join the Helium network, and so for the user, for miner, they could have a list, and they could easily choose to use some services, support some services, so that their devices will just be able to run their services. So the services will be supported by Helium, your team, and the services their own team, so that it will be easier to deploy more of their services to different kind of the Helium nodes. So the idea is that I think that so it could expand the Helium network not only to very different types of their communication network, but also it could support many different application, different services, and this will benefit three sides. One side is Helium, the team. So the network will be expanded a lot, and it will be just a market, and also like a ecosystem, and kind of just like kind of idea, and this kind of idea will people have to burn their data credits, so that it will help their ecosystem of their Helium network, and also their miners. That side, they will get rewarded. For example, we want to use the Helium network, and we want to pay if some nodes that are running some services, including the services from us and the services. I mean, just the services doesn't really matter, right? So, but if the service is running, the users will get the kind of reward. I mean, it depends on how much the resources they are used, and of course for the miners, there will always be a choice to stop and start any kind of their services. So it will be their choice, their behavior of the market. So I believe that this kind of idea will just be able to be pretty healthy. So that because the market will just help their miner to choose which of the, just like people want to mining different kind of token, right? But here it's not only about their token. And for their tokens, it's kind of uh, a little difficult for the miner to run because it's kind of a little difficult for the new beginners, and also the network is not already built. But for the Helium network, their kind of conditions are already met. And of course, and for the application side, they will have could run their services in their decentralized website, or maybe it doesn't matter so much maybe, but but the results it just will help the three sides. And I have to say that because I'm just standing of the one side of the Mesa network, so I don't have enough of the. I need to just. This is a kind of big idea because that if it works, so the Helium network will just be able to support. Just kind of building just the another website network. This network will just. I'm sorry to forget. Please, I live in
Please.
Japan, so
Nope.
forget my English. But
Yeah.
I think that the more details you could just get it from their proposal, and any idea will help it. And just because different sides they have different interests, so there are different interests that will be helpful to make their proposal a better one. And also the services, not only from us, any other services, they could, this proposal might be a good idea to them as well. So yeah, this is the proposal.
That's
Welcome
great.
to ask
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
Yeah. Could I thank you very much for your submission and for walking us through it. Would it be correct to sort of summarize this, like others have mentioned in the chat, as a proposal to allow essentially sort of side loading other services and running other services on a given Helium node?
Yeah, multiple services running on our Helium nodes. Yeah.
Got it. And then it's great. In the chat, there's a number of people who have chimed in with sort of their support and their appreciation for this proposal, because there's been a long running conversation around this sort of multi-mining idea, which I think historically was mostly other sorts of radio related blockchain projects. But in your proposal, you specifically mentioned CDNs, which it sounds like your business is related to, and VPNs and other sorts of services. Is that, am I understanding it all correctly?
Yeah, I think that for CDN and VPN, they definitely could be kind of like treated like a kind of services, right? I read the proposal. HIP 5051. So that I talked a little about the VPN and the CDN, but how it works, it's not well talked about. So this kind of services will be just like other services to be able to join the list. And of course, multi of the VPNs and the CDN, kind of services could be join at the same time, so the user will be able to choose the best one for their interests. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Do you have, well, first of all, for anybody with questions on this proposal, while we have time, please chime in the community call chat channel in Discord, which I'll keep an eye on. What a few people are making comments alluding to two things. I'll say the first one that I'll ask, because it's been a topic previously, is that hotspots, generally speaking, are running all different kinds of firmware setups. Did you have any thoughts as to, on a technical level, how something like this would get deployed in a way that it could be used, or would it be something where you would try to work with specific hotspot vendors to integrate it there?
Is that a question? Could you just repeat again? Sorry.
Um, on a technical level, if the hotspots are all running different kinds of firmware, do do you have thoughts on how you might approach deploying it with different vendors? Since I know there's no standardized firmware across all of the different hotspots that are currently deployed.
Yeah, this is I actually I mean our team have already reached some of their how to say that their device their suppliers of the Helium network so that their services could already be kind of deployed into uh, their machines. But um, for different, I mean, for different kind of devices, there will be some different, they are different, and also for the services, their services what it requires, they are different, right? So we think that it's best to just get a list. I mean, for example, some kind of services it takes lots of their kind of their calculation. Some services just need some space, and some services just need some uh, bandwidth. And we get their list. I mean, what kind of resources it take, and also try to be able to figure out. I mean, how much the resources each service it consumes. So this is not a very difficult problem, right? So if it is finished, then uh, for the for the manners, they will be able to know which services consumes how much of those resources, so that they could choose whether to use which one. And for the how to get to be it deployed in different devices, I think that um, this I mean this can be a problem for the service suppliers. So you don't really worry about it too much, because for the service device the supplier, if they want to use their Helium network, it's maybe I mean we want to design that kind of job to be their task. If they can finish their requirement, and their service will be go into the Helium different kind of nodes. I mean, it doesn't. We don't need to make all the devices to support the other services, right? Just need to kind of nodes if they want to run, so they will be able to run. Yeah. So and their benefits will just be working well for some kind of the nodes, but it's totally fine.
Agreed. And then the other question that there's a few comments about in the chat is related to essentially to security. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on how that might work with a setup like this. And really, the questions cover both the hardware security, the ECC chips, and the private keys on the device, as well as, I suppose, kind of infer. I understand related to you know the security of whoever is publishing these services that someone might install onto their device.
You mean the security issue? It's a very important problem, right? So that's why I mean in the proposal we said that just like the HIP 19, we need to I mean, HIP 19 is about approval process for third-party manufacturers. So this is kind of like a similar question, so that we need to um, uh, build, I mean, to found a committee. Another committee just they will be able to check the source code of their different devices, so that we'll be able to make sure, kind of make sure, yeah, that this kind of services will not um, lead some security issue. Yeah. So and so for the beginning, probably it will be a little difficult to pick their to approve which kind of their services will be able to run. But I think that this this is something this thing needs to be careful. But but if their code is open sourced, and also for their, we make some security kind of their probably some coding. Just we run some um, some verifier so that it can just kind of monitor the different services, and of course if some services could possibly maybe kind of be dangerous, that service will just immediately be removed. So I don't know, how it can be. I don't have a complete solution yet, but it's a problem to our community, right? And also that's a reason we need a committee. Yeah.
Yes, it's great. We're at time for this topic, but so thank you so much for the submission. Really interesting proposal and really interesting idea. There is a HIP 68 Discord channel available as of yesterday for additional questions, and I'm sure Coco Doko will be keeping an eye on it to answer any other questions and comments from if you have them.
Yes, thank you. Just want to say one thing. You can see that my English not so well, and also something I'm not well prepared. And because that, I don't think that this proposal is only related to me, the team of mine. So because that this kind of proposal, we just want to really make the proposal kind of like community proposal, so that our services, just one of the services, could be able to run that, so that finally it just will build a kind of system, ecosystem, so that it will just benefit many different kind of groups. Yeah, this is what I wish. So yeah.
Absolutely, yes. Yes, I first of all, no need to apologize. I appreciate you speaking in English for the benefit of us at all, and the same goes for everybody else presenting. We're obviously all more than happy to deal with audio issues and bad jokes and non-native English speaking, and none of that is a problem at all.
It's my problem. Thank you, Jimmy. Yeah.
Yes, of
thank
course.
you.
Yeah, and I totally agree with your sentiment too. Since I'm a contributor to IPFS in addition to Helium, and that would be a wonderful, a very light node running on Helium hotspots would be very cool. In the same way that I think Meson network makes sense as well. So I think you're correct. And to Coco's point, I think if anybody is interested in this proposal, they seem very willing to have you help edit and improve the proposal. So please get to work. So thank you, Coco Doko. Appreciate it.
Okay.
We have two more topics on the agenda. Our third HIP of the day, HIP 69, and then the last one will be Moby from Boring Protocol. Up next, we have John Mac 50-5G talking about HIP 69 reassertion fee reduction. John, do we have you on the line? I have no audio from you for whatever it's worth. All right, this is me stalling for time. We'll give John. I'll give him 60 seconds, and then we'll maybe flip the order of the topics if you're ready, Moby.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Welcome, John.
Oh, thank you. All right, thank you so much for having me. So really, this HIP is relatively pretty simple in terms of like the core concept. Obviously currently costs 1 million DC for reasserting a hotspot's location, and the average daily DC comes out to about 50,000. And I do want to point out that at the time when this 1 million DC assertion fee was first made, the average, the daily average DC per hotspot was several times greater than it is today. And if you do the math on the exact number of 50,000, it comes out to about 20 days worth of mining for the average hotspot to be able to pay for their reassertion. And again, that's the average. The hotspots that are in extremely oversaturated areas. So let's say, for example, if you look at Brooklyn, New York, and there are hexes with literally 40 or even 50 or more hotspots within 1 hex. And if you look at any one of those hotspots in terms of their daily averages, it's several times less than the average of 0.05 HNT or 50,000 per day. So 50,000 DC per day. So in truth, when it comes to the hotspots, they're in the most oversaturated areas, and those are the ones that really, that we really do want them, and they themselves probably would also like to move into a much less saturated areas, even if it's purely on a selfish, like, I want to earn more. But it is a great burden for someone who, it would take them a month, 2 months, 3 months, or even more just to be able to acquire the million DC from mining. To be able to pay for the reassertion fee it's quite a burden, quite a lot. And in truth, like, I did really think about this HIP in great detail before I wrote it, as opposed to my first HIP that I wrote regarding the MCC, which was not well thought out. But in reality, I really thought about this, and the reason why I chose to call it reassertion fee is because of one of the many things I thought about. Instead of just changing the assertion fee, I'm looking to only change the reassertion fee. So in other words, that the initial onboarding fee will not be changed. At least in the draft of this HIP, it won't be changed. It's really just trying to help those that are trying to reassert their hotspots, trying to get them into a less saturated area. Or even someone who actually say, purchased a hotspot from someone else and they transferred their hotspots. The person who sold it transferred to the person who bought it, and now this person who bought it, where normally the initial assertion fee is covered by the maker, but obviously not in this case. So that so also to lessen the burden on people who are just purchased a secondhand hotspot. And I did, as I mentioned, I did put a great thought into this. So, like, instead of, let's just say, recommending, it only be 50,000 DC or 100,000 DC, I said to myself, if I request it be made that low, it's definitely going to be helping many people, spoof their location, whether it's, just like actual spoofers who are, going different countries, different states, or even if it's just someone who's just trying to move their hotspot into like a nearby hex, to increase their TS scale. So that's why I really thought about the amount that I want to recommend. And obviously, I'm open to hearing anyone else counter to what proper amount of DC it should be changed to. But I came up with the 500,000 DC as opposed to the million, exactly half, because I figured that is happening. The burden on those that are genuinely just trying to move their hotspots into a less saturated area. It's lessening the burden on those that are purchasing a secondhand hotspot, and it's also still large enough to be, to prevent those that are just like simply trying to move it over to the next hack store or the spoofers. I did also add that, if possible, and I say if possible because I did speak to Neil, who told me it's not going to be possible on a technical level. But my initial thought is, if possible, we could also implement that the fee reduction for the reassertions should only be allowed once per hotspot per year. But again, I'm pretty sure it won't be possible based on Neil's advice. But putting that aside, I think it is generally just really fair to think about the average, those simple numbers, the average DC per hotspot per day and the million DC cost per reassertion. It's quite, at this point in the game, it seems quite large, quite a bit unfair, in my opinion, to charge, 1 million DC. Again, when that 1 million DC, fee was made, that was some time ago when the average daily DC per hotspot was quite larger than it is today. So, just to please bear that in mind when thinking about this vote or when voting for this vote. And that's really the core concept of why I made this vote. I think we do, in conclusion, I think reducing the DC reassertion fee from 1 million to 500,000 will ultimately do a lot more good than bad. It will ultimately help a lot of people, in extremely oversaturated areas. It will lessen the burden on them. Instead of taking them 6 months worth of mining or 3 months worth of mining or even 1 month worth of mining, it will only take them half that amount of time. But again, still a great amount where it's not going to allow, just crazy amounts of location spoofing, just trying to increase your TS or whatnot. So, in conclusion, I do think it will do more, harm than good, and I do think that it will help expand the network and allow people who are in extremely oversaturated areas to not have to say, well, I don't want to spend 3 months worth of, mining just to get it over somewhere else. And I think it will help those that are purchasing secondhand hotspots, and ultimately it will do a lot more good than anything else, and it will help to expand the network.
That's great. Thank you, John. The first question that we got, I think you addressed already, was just around, if lowering the fee, more folks might be gaming to increase their transmit scale or to spoof their location. but you mentioned that there's a balance to be struck here. There is a suggestion from JMF and Hashcode if there is a way to reduce the fee based on time. I'm just curious if that was something you'd considered.
So that is something that I'm only considering it now because someone had mentioned it. I definitely would absolutely consider that and look into that a bit more in depth. And also, I am not a technical expert, especially in terms of like any kind of software development code. So I don't know what that would entail. I also do not know if it's possible to implement the once per year, which I'm under the impression that's not possible. But so yeah, with the help of the actual core dev team to know what is technically reasonable and what is not, I'm absolutely open to that possibility.
Yeah, we have multiple people with Nova badges on their name mentioning that it is technically possible to do something like essentially the longer the hotspot's been in place, the less it costs to reassert it, if I'm
I
interpreting
think that
correctly.
I do think that is definitely fair. But then again, it would also be possibly unfair to those who let's just say, for instance, someone purchased a hotspot in Brooklyn, New York, and it's their hotspot. There's over 50 something hotspots in their hexes, and then they realize, hey, I'm in an extremely oversaturated hex, which is why I'm earning 2 cents a day. I'm sorry, two DC a day, and and they want to genuinely move their hotspots to a less saturated area, but because now they would need 1 million DC and they're earning 2 DC a day, it's they're not going to do it. So I think that would in essence also kind of defeat one of the main core purposes of this HIP.
Got it. Yeah, and then one interesting quirk I've run into is how in the mobile app, it detects as you're onboarding your hotspot, you're unpacking your first hotspot. It's essentially much easier to assert the location exactly where you are. And I'm pretty sure there is like a skip this step button on the bottom, but I'm sure most people just kind of go ahead with it. And then to your point, might discover that they should have put it at their parents' house or similar.
Right. I was actually considering on that note, I was considering maybe also amending the HIP to remove that option, meaning remove the option to assert your hotspot later. And perhaps we could also consider enforcing that in order to assert your location, you must do it via a GPS lock. I mean, obviously that's not foolproof, and obviously there's people that will still find ways, VPNs or whatnot, to spoof their locations regardless. But it will still also help prevent a lot of people who otherwise would not have been able to, assert their location inaccurately.
Very interesting ideas. And then this HIP was merged yesterday, so there is HIP 69 channel inside of Discord if you have other questions or ideas for John or for this idea. And I'll give a couple more minutes for any additional questions about lowering the reassertion fee. Specifically, the standing proposal is to reduce it by half, but the title is reducing the reassertion fee for hotspots.
That's correct. And
people seem to be generally supportive of it. I think everybody has had, botched moments of assertion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's literally there's that one aspect in and of itself. I mean, human error of the assertion. When I first joined the Helium, when I put my very first hotspot on the Helium network, that was well over a year ago. I had typed in my address in the search, and I hit OK, and it showed my address, and I hit assert, and for whatever reason, it went like 5 blocks off. Now I was very uneducated at the time, and in my mind, I'm like, oh God, I just spoofed. I just did something very wrong, and and obviously that wasn't my intention. Obviously, 5 blocks off is completely okay. But I'm saying I didn't know that, and in my head, I'm like, oh God, I put in the address, it showed me the correct address, but somehow it still asserted it incorrectly 5 blocks away. And then, I ended up doing about 5 reasserts on that one hotspot, my first hotspot, just because of just human error and together with the GPS not locking correctly, and however that happens. So there's the human error aspect, there's the quote unquote fat fingers aspect, and there's also the many other aspects. Someone who put in their location accurately and genuinely wants to move it, but just won't on the notion that, hey, I'm not spending however long it is, months or many months even, just to reassert my location. And I think all in all, it really does make sense for the network as a whole, and it will expand the network, and it will ultimately do a lot more good than anything else.
That's great. Well, John, thank you for taking the time to write all this up. And like I mentioned, the HIP 69 channel is open for further discussion. And sounds like there's a lot of interesting sort of variations on this idea too. And generally people seem into it. So thank you again. Really appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you.
So for our final topic for the call, I'm delighted to welcome Moby, aka FOMOBY, from Boring Protocol.
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you to the Helium community for inviting us here today. In case you've missed the spiel, previously, Boring Protocol is a DVPN built with Solana is the layer 1 transaction layer. We've been around for about a year. The VPN itself is live now. We've got, I think, a little over 500 nodes distributed. We are looking at integrating with Helium to help raise our node count in a sustainable manner, and hopefully help the some of the Helium hotspots out there that are technically capable earn another type of income through our BOP token. So currently working on a HIP, have been doing that for the last few months, trying to wrap our heads around the best process that's adheres to the kind of corner that we painted ourselves into with promises we made to our community, and then also being able to adhere to what the outline for these sub DAOs is through HIP 51. So I think we're pretty close. I think we're probably a couple weeks away from putting that proposal forward to you guys. We just really want to make sure that as many questions as possible are answered through that proposal, and that we're being comprehensive in the way that we're going to implement it. So happy to take questions about it, through our Discord or here in your Discord. But very excited to be putting that proposal in front of y'all in the next few weeks. So
That's great. And then, did you have any thoughts on the HIP 68 proposal that was suggested earlier? It seems like it would be relevant to your interests.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very interesting proposal there, Cocodogo, and I think it could be very positive for projects looking to onboard. If you have that marketplace structure there, it's going to entice certain networks to be involved, because they're going to have access to what's available to them as far as node count and a few other things right there handy. So I think that could be very good. Certainly a lot of challenges that I think that need to be addressed with it, but absolutely in support of exploring that.
And then on a technical level, I know that Boring runs on Raspberry Pis, which powers a good deal of the Helium network. On a technical level, do you know, you mentioned sort of like some of the proposal coming soon. Has there been much technical exploration about sort of how your software does on device alongside sort of the existing hotspot software, either on like a full node or on a light hotspot?
Yeah, so there's nothing that I want to say conclusively, but we are exploring it with a few hotspot manufacturers within the Helium community currently, and then internally as well. And I think if we can implement a Docker container to run side by side with the Helium firmware, and as long as the routing capability is there, then I don't see any issue with it. But it's still mostly unbacked optimism at this point. We've got a lot of testing, I think, to do to make sure that that number one, we're not impeding anything with Helium, and that our protocol is able to run efficiently with Helium on the same hotspots. So getting pretty close to having something more concrete as far as an answer on that. But we're wholly optimistic, like I say.
Very cool. Well, thank you for the teasers. If there's any questions for Moby from Boring Protocol, we're happy to address them now.
Yeah, just also wanted to say, if you guys are welcome in our Discord as well. Reach out to us with ideas, suggestions, anything. Really important to us that we get it right with the Helium community, so that y'all are happy and that we're able to help drive a little bit more profitability to some of your network operators.
That's great. Yeah, thank you, Moby. Looking forward to seeing the full-fledged proposal around it. It sounds like this is kind of something where there's a couple of like-minded folks thinking the same idea, and there's been kind of a long-running thread too around standardized firmware for hotspots, which has kind of been, there's pros and cons, but I would be curious if there were ways to streamline some of this kind of app store model that more than one company is interested in now.
Yeah, no doubt it would be good for the Helium ecosystem as a whole to have something like that in place.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, we got a lot of hotspots out there. Thank you again. It's great. Then I will. There's been kind of some meta commentary around sort of the nature of this call. Historically speaking, like I mentioned at the top of the call, we're approaching our 2-year anniversary, and the primary goal for this call has always been addressing sort of high-level technical and governance proposals, which are generally expressed as HIPs and things that relate to the development of the network and sort of the future of the network. We often organize AMAs around specific topics, but I'm more than happy to field feedback or ideas for ways that we could either solicit questions and try to have folks address them on these calls, or otherwise putting non-HIP items onto the agenda. You can always get in touch with me or Etta or anyone in the foundation channel if you did have something you wanted to bring up. But we do try to curate the agenda, keep things moving along, and focus it on high-level subjects that relate to the entire network. Yeah, and then some of the other questions specifically around the blockchain and things like that, I'll have to defer to the engineering team who often provide updates in Discord via text, just not necessarily on this call. But something to note for the future. If they're always welcome to chime in if they'd like. This is great. I think with that, we always schedule 90 minutes for this call, but we've been coming in a little quick, which is delightful. And a big thank you to all of our speakers this month. A big thank you to everybody who joined either now or in the future via audio recording. And as always, a gigantic thank you to our note taker, which is Etta again this month. I really appreciate it. The notes make it really easy to see what happened on the call in case you missed it and you only have 5 minutes. So thank you very much for attending, and we'll see y'all next month.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, feel free to unmute and say bye.
Thank you so much for having me, and
Yeah.
definitely open to hear everyone's thoughts about the HIP, and happy to amend it in any way. And all the best. Much appreciated.
Thanks, everyone.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks y'all. Take care.
Thank you.